marijuana. Yep. So I'm an unemployable counselor, but my background is addictions counseling, and I always find marijuana to be a sticky wicket when I was coming up in different places, right? Because if you have an abstinence-based system, then it's nothing. But then you move to other things and you kind of can see where the harm reduction aspect, right? Where it's like, well, if we're going to minimize the harm, and yeah, there's a fine line between helping and enabling. But I do think that if you are taking some heavy duty drugs like codeine, right, then that might be a good way for, that to help, and it's a lower impact, right? Like that kind of stuff, right? Depending on what your input is. I'm not going to argue about harm reduction. I think there's a place for everything as long as we're trying to help people, but it's got to be run right. What else to say, right? It has to have if everything can mesh at the same time and be perfect, but it always seems like there's always something a little bit ahead of the other, or government's a year behind on making a decision on this, right? Those sorts of things. And that's what you'll see now probably as you look around the community. But I was thinking today driving around that we have there was a new place that I saw that was selling cannabis stuff. And I thought, man, for a town of 40,000, like, I don't know how many we had before that. So I started thinking, like, there's, we have, like, now we got, like, 4, I guess. Not counting independent contractors or entrepreneurs. Right? So I thought, oh man. And I remember when that was happening, because it wasn't that long ago, right? Everyone remembers that. It's not, we weren't all down by the creek looking at the alligators, right, or wherever. Right, because the Liberals did a really smart move there. They got a lot of, a younger demographic out, right? And I think a lot of it had to do with that. But also, too, I always had a belief that, look, if you're going to even soften your stance on marijuana use for, like, hardcore drug users or, opiate addicts, or as we're seeing now, like, palliative care, things like that, then why wouldn't you just legalize it and tax the shit out of it, right? I don't know anything about the finances of any of those places. I didn't ask any of them. I'm just noticed today where it's like, it's weird when you consider how many places in town you can buy off sale. There's quite a few for alcohol. But now to have, like, places for that. Not even to, count the stuff I'm sure that gets sent in the mail. Because I think you can do that. I don't know. I don't know the legal ramifications around that. If you do, let me know. Put it in the comments. But I was just kind of not taken aback, but it was just kind of like, man. And it's right, and it's close to like a secondary school, so it's like location is probably pretty good. But yeah, so and it goes back to the point about, okay, so on December 18th, there's going to be a vote where they're going to talk about the anti-smoking groups, anti-vaping groups were coming out saying, no, we've been fighting hard for this. This is, a gateway, I think with some of the arguing points, right? And I'm not here to discuss which one I prefer or which one I support, because I don't have a dog in that fight, but, nor would I do that. But, right, so it was like, aiming to kids, and I guess, you can kind of see where they're coming from, because they're looking at it from a perspective of, I almost want to say 1980s heavy, kind of harder rock music before Congress, because remember they're with Tipper Gore. They took on, and I remember it was Dee Schneider from Twisted Sister, and there was a lot of them that went up there and had to testify and saying, hey, like, it's not, our music isn't getting anyone to do anything, right? So I think for me, I think there's elements of that because ultimately it boils down to choice and parenting, and that flips to what I'm sure would be the vaping community saying, look, man, like we cover it up in stores, right? Like we have our own separate shops. You got to be this old to come in, blah blah blah, right? We're doing our due diligence here. We should be allowed to sell it to these customers, and why shouldn't they, right? I always thought too. It's like I know a lot of people that vape, and I know a lot of people that have swore that, because now that they're on less nicotine, it's a different animal for them, and it's better, right? Because it's like there's no like, and that's for part of the issues. Might be a pleasant smell, right? So you might have blueberry or strawberry or Unemployable Counsellor after hour scent, right? So I mean, like, there's all kinds of great scents out there. It's truly immaculate. But no, so I can understand that perspective as well. That's what I mean, where it's like, I think that, as especially with like the cannabis usage, and then you got the vape shops, like, a lot of them, you can buy this stuff there anyway, but they're saying that, hey, no, they don't want anything flavored there. So it wouldn't stop at the flavored vapes. It would stop everywhere else. That's why I'm kind of tying those two together. But I find that, I think, like I said, for the government, tax the shit out of it, and they did. Right? From what I understand. Right? So, I mean, like, and one thing, too, is you talk about harm reduction. Even if now that it's regulated, it has to go through a certain process. So you're not getting something that some guy's chopping up in the back of a Winnebago or some shit, right? Like, it's actually, it's government sealed, it's not mixed with anything, right? Especially look at the overdoses and things like that, right? Like, the government did a wise thing there. For me, I look at that. To me, that's harm reduction strategy, right? In that case, you're taking a healthy cut off the top, 1950s Vegas casino style, but I think it's well warranted, because if you're going to be selling this, which is illegal for forever, you're going to fucking pay, right? It's like the gold rush, right? The late 1800s, the gold rush in California and all that, right? Where it's like, oh, it was all riches. So everyone ran and got, bought little plots of land up there or whatever, and they all were trying to state their claim. Just like when the Liberals approved this, and was it 2017, I think? Everyone and their dog was lining up to get, a license, and there's all these places going. They even had, like, vending machines in Vancouver, right? So I mean, it's like, wow, right? So that stuff always comes back now to money, especially if you're government. Now, I'm not saying you got to legalize everything, because that would just be insane. But I do think that, I think that if you're caught driving and you're higher than Bob Marley in his day, right? Then okay. Right, then you need to face the consequences for that, just like with alcohol, right? But I do think that there's got to be some leeway in terms of just even like with harm reduction. Like, I think too, like, if you're, because I work for a place too where it's like we test everything but marijuana. It's like, man, if you're right, because if you're detoxing or you're trying to quit all these harder drugs, it's almost like the lesser of two evils there, right? Because, like, there's a lot of, especially lately, there's all the research and the data saying, this is what affects, and who knows, man? Like, it's been around forever, and I mean, whether you do and you don't, it's it's nobody's business. But what I'm saying is, I do think that there's, I do think that that's kind of the moment where it's like, okay, this is what we got to happen, right? Where it's like, okay, I think that it worked out kind of well. Oh, I don't know if it worked out kind of well, but I mean, like, it is where it is. I shouldn't say that. Sorry. And One thing that's crazy is when you consider, like I said, like we have a town of 40,000. We got this group, right? You got alcohol. You got all these places that sell marijuana, right? I'm sure if you drive downtown, you can find independent contractors, um, and jails, right? And fast food restaurants, right? And I mean, and I think marijuana, I think, would be the least of the concerns, just because I've never, I've been counseling for a little bit of time, right? And I think too, like, you never hear about anyone getting really stoned and going and chopping up a bunch of people with an axe, right? Or, robbing a bank, right? And shooting a bunch of people, right? Or getting really stoned and beating his, I'm sure, you know, the only thing that guy's beating is a bag of Cheetos, probably. Like, what I'm saying is, like, for me and a lot of the stuff that I've worked with and talked to, it seems like, if you can kind of hit that sweet spot around there, because, like, especially, man, it's tough. I give people a lot of credit because, man, what you can have and what you can, right? I worked with a guy who once said, "Oh, you know what, alcohol is like peanut butter to me," or it's right because he was allergic to nuts, right? So he's like, it's like peanut butter to me. If I drink it, I know I'm gonna die, right? Because it was like, and that's the way you had to look at it. And I think this is the way I look at it because I think too, like, because it's something you never get over, right? Like, it's always kind of there, but you manage it. You do your maintenance. You do your you do your you do what you need to do to stay on that path. What I'm saying is about the cannabis in town is, like, I think that's where I think the line is, and I'm sure it's like that already because I noticed when I was at different places, it was softened. It was softened a lot because, like, it's more about the help aspect. I don't know if it's gonna continue, but it's such a long process. But yeah, that for me, you know, yeah, I just want to do this little video because I noticed that today, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be rambly. Not like I really prepare anything, but this, might be interesting on a nice Saturday today. Yes. All right. Thank you very much. If you're new to the channel, my name's Corey, and I'm sorry for what you just watched. If you returned, then thank you. I appreciate the views and the attention. Leave questions, comments down below. We can chat again in the future. Onward and upward. All right, take care.